Newsfirst Newsline with Faraz Shauketaly.
Hello, good evening and welcome to Newsline Live. And this evening we have a guest who is a member of the legal fraternity, an attorney at law. And we hope to discuss and debate the various growing concerns on the application of the law on very serious matters. They include the proposed bill for the Colombo Port City, the Port City Commission, and also other matters, including which members of the legal fraternity say that these are rather draconian and is unhelpful towards a democratic and pluralistic society. And to discuss these matters, we've got here attorney at law, Mr. Harshana Nanayakkara. Very good evening to you, Harshana.
Good evening, Faraz.
There is growing concern that the law appears to be sort of watered down or being applied in a very, shall we say, in a direction that is not equitable. For example, we have, if we take a look at the Port City bill, we have various references which seems to forget that Parliament is the ultimate authority on public finance, and that is per the Constitution. But yet, Section 53.4 of the Port City Bill suggests that in the application, and certainly in at least one instance, they will send this information to Parliament for Parliament's information. I thought, Archana, that it is always for Parliament to debate and pass, and then the onus is on the Parliament, not on somebody to advise Parliament that this is for your information. It seems to be one hell of a how do you do.
It was spot on for us. Basically, if you look at that act, the entire scheme, it doesn't come under any provincial council, it doesn't come under any local authority, it comes under a commission appointed by the President. Right. Again, with the 20th Amendment, he doesn't even have to consult anyone. He can appoint whomever he wishes. So the entire administration, collecting of rates, I mean, it's like an entire separate province run under a commission. And the point you made earlier, under the Constitution, Parliament is the overseer of all finances. Because it's tax money. Even the commissioners are allowed to take a percentage out of tax as government revenue. But there's no Parliament oversight. It is not required. It will be run just by the commissioners. So this is not separation of powers. This is actually taking over the functions of the Parliament, because they cannot oversee public finances of the port city.
How does one address it? Obviously, through Parliament. Parliament has to be aware of these concerns and address them before it becomes law.
I hope so, Faraz, because now it's at a bill stage, which they will debate. But how many will actually read it and understand and make an effective contribution?
And that's the whole problem.
We know the Parliament. We know how they got the 2/3 majority by crossovers, and they're going to raise their hands anyway. So, I mean, they have to do their job by the people, the taxpayers of this country, because this is the biggest problem we have after the 20th Amendment. That hands will be raised, so we are simply paying for some serious mistakes. So I think this Port Authority is really a serious issue that the Parliament should consider.
And there are other matters as well, because, for example, I'll get these notes out for you. It says benefits granted over there in the Port City would be income tax, value-added tax, excise duty, debit tax, customs duties, port and airport levy, Sri Lanka Export Development Act levies, betting, game and casino laws, labour laws. Laws that will not apply or exempted would include the BOI, the UDA, Municipal Council laws, Commercial Mediation Centre of Sri Lanka Act, the Town and Country Planning Ordinance, the Strategic Development Projects Act, and the Public Contracts Act. And finally, to add to that, not comprehensive list, but to add to that list, no domestic bank will be allowed to fund investments in local currency. So if all these laws are not going to be applicable, does this mean that the port city is actually another state?
I mean, looks like it. From the text of it, in Schedule 2, they say enactments from under which exceptions can be granted. So there are certain laws that will not apply there. The whole list you read are there. But my biggest concern is termination of employment of workmen, Special Provisions Act number 45, 1971.
Right.
Our labor laws provide protection for workers. And this law says, by way of a gazette, that also can be exempted. So I think they are having in mind, because their whole thing is, the idea is to speed up investment, speed up the money-making process.
And therefore they intend ruling this or implementing the rule of law by the use of gazettes.
By the use of gazettes, right? They are not going to by the use of gazettes. None of these things, I mean, okay to grant an exemption, okay to grant something, right?
Yeah.
But it has to be brought to the parliament, debated in the parliament, and see whether it's in the best interest of the country.
Yeah.
But here, the commissioners can make the recommendation to the president.
And we don't know what criteria the president will rely on, if he will indeed rely on any criteria, and what that criteria is to qualify or to be suitable or to be considered to be a commissioner.
Nothing.
Or part of that commission.
Nothing. It just says someone knowledgeable according to the idea of the president. So only he decides, he's the deciding authority, whomever he thinks is suitable for the job. I mean, it says knowing the subject and yada, yada, yada. But ultimately, president appoints, he decides, he passes gazettes.
So the presidency will probably argue that, look, we have a mandate, and I have the 20th Amendment that allows me to do that.
This is why, sorry, please.
So what would then be the position?
Well, that's the thing, Faraz. Forget about the mandate. Now, there are so many draconian positions on this, eroding separation of powers, violating all norms of democracy and discrimination. Especially, some of these people are not even supposed to pay income taxes.
Yeah.
Right? It's there in the law.
Yeah.
But if he gets 2/3 majority, which he will, this can pass as the law. Remember, he has a 2/3 majority, not just 6.9 million.
Yeah.
The crossovers have given him the 2/3.
But this is, if you like, a matter of grave concern, because what is being planned now and will be debated will affect the Republic of Sri Lanka for time immemorial.
99 years.
For at least 99 years, which is beyond the scope, beyond the lifetime of several people.
Exactly, and also there are other provisions one has to be careful of. Our businessmen locally must be thinking, we can very freely go and invest there. Remember, you have to be an authorized person.
Yeah.
That authorization is done by the commission, and I don't think that can be challenged in a court of law. So without the authorization, you can't engage in any business. And also they have established a international commercial arbitration center inside it.
Right.
And all the contracts, the law says, must have a reference to arbitration in case of a dispute. That means if there's a service provider who want to go to court for a violation, will have to first submit to arbitration. That's why the reference is there. So what we are having is a thing, this government, whom we handed over the country for 5 years, is tying up our sovereignty, our independence for 99 years.
99 years. And that's the point. And there doesn't seem to be an all-party consensus on this matter, because after all, it is the future of the country as a whole, not the future of one political party or others.
Exactly.
And therefore, in the real national interest, don't you think that it is incumbent on this government to sort of bring in all the opposition parties and have a common ground, because after all, this government will not be in power forever, nor will the next government coming along.
Exactly.
So in the interests of balance, don't you think that would be a welcome move to bring all the parties together and reach a common consensus?
Obviously, that it would have been the ideal thing. But still, it's not too late, because the matter will be debated in Parliament.
Right.
Right? And you see sometime, even when the 20th Amendment came, there were vociferous people from the government itself objecting to certain aspects of it. But in the end, they all raised their hand. Right? So,
but you make a valid point that how many of our parliamentarians will bother reading this bill?
they won't.
And,
Take it after lunch, nobody would read a single word.
but this is a very serious matter.
Look here, people decided to send this representative to the parliament.
Yes, but they didn't give them specific instructions to dilute the power of Parliament. And that is what it appears that Parliament themselves are doing. By if they agree to this thing the way it is proposed, it will be preposterous on terms of the law and our Constitution.
No, obviously, I mean, that's why I think we should think in terms of going to see whether this act is constitutional, eroding the powers of the Parliament. But remember, it is the same Parliament with the 20th Amendment who willingly gave away all the authority they had to the President. It is the same Parliament that this bill will come to. Basically, they tied their own noose, the Parliament.
So what can the people do? Can they go to the Supreme Court? Can they run along to the Supreme Court
They
now?
should. We'll have 2 weeks' time after it is presented to the Parliament, 2 weeks' time to see whether it's constitutional or not. So I think now there are many other, this government, whatever the gazette they put forward, there are at least 5 or 6 cases people go to,
Yeah.
which I will refer to later. But yes, they can go to the Supreme Court to see whether this is constitutional, because especially, it is a different matter that you want to attract business, investors, that is fine.
Yeah.
But you cannot compromise the integrity of people, you cannot compromise the sovereignty of a nation. I mean,
It is also of not very clear to me as to how the government of Sri Lanka will derive financial benefit from this.
there will be some financial benefit or not. It has to be overseen by someone. Someone must audit and see how much revenue did we receive.
So would the
There's no
Auditor
provision.
would there be a
No.
provision for our
No.
Auditor General?
Not that I saw in this law, no. I did not see such a provision. So which means the government will say, oh, we got this X amount, that's all we know. I mean, are the taxes being collected reasonably? Are there any deals going on between the commissioners themselves and everybody else? Because there's a provision in this act. Commissioners, any action they do in good faith, even if it is wrong, right, they cannot be prosecuted. They cannot be taken charge of. So what I'm saying is, even those income, who
Yeah.
audits? The Parliament will never know what finance are there. So if it is done in the name of the Republic, shouldn't the citizens have a chance of knowing how much money did you earn? How much taxes have we collected for the consolidated fund?
But some of this information might be, shall we say, inconvenient for some and unhelpful for others.
For us, in this country, without the port city, just the normal side of the country, see the amount of corruption and stealing of public wealth going on, right? With all eyes on deck, with a parliament overseeing all of them, still look at the amount of public money that is wasted and corrupt. The port city, we have no chance. Port city, no chance. So things are being done by this government in the name of the people, which will be detrimental to its people. So I hope the Parliament will take this matter seriously and actually read this through and fight it through.
And the party that you lean towards
Will do their part.
will do their part, which
They are
is
the
of
only
course
ones.
the NPP,
NPP,
which
we have
is
three
a
MPs.
JVP
Opponent, yeah.
component.
And our three will definitely work on it and at least educate the public. We are only 3 people. Whatever our objections will not be.
And that is also ironic. If as indeed the JVP are shouting their heads off, and the 3 people are in Parliament, how come the public don't elect more from the JVP?
We'll use the word NPP because they are now as NPP now.
Yes.
Well, how difficult to explain? It's like, see, when you try to buy kolakanda in the morning,
Yeah.
you know kolakanda is good for you, but there's no queue. You know alcohol is bad, but there's always a queue. Always a crowd for the alcohol, but not for the kanda.
I was going to.
So I don't know why.
I was going to draw another analogy.
Please.
And that was that the same question, but if we look at one Ranil Wickremesinghe, he was the leader of the United National Party, 40 years in Parliament, and he kept, in spite of the various concerns and on leadership issues and whatever, time and election after election, although the United National Party lost and lost and lost under his leadership, he himself was elected and re-elected time and time again in Colombo. And finally, he lost his seat. So this finally has taken a long time. It would be disastrous for the Republic if that same was to happen with this Port City project, for example, because that is really going to be the jewel in the crown.
Look here, with the way we are located, Faraz, geography is very important.
Yeah.
How we can earn dollars are through ports and port cities, because we don't have any oil or gold to sell and earn foreign currency. So we are strategic location. If we are not using that strategic location for the advantage of this country, that's the biggest treachery and crime.
Do you think the bulk of our members of parliament, the bulk, do you think the bulk of them know how to spell the word geography?
Most probably not. Recently, I know they refused to even divulge their education information, didn't they?
Well, yes, but it is sad. Look, we need the public needs to be doing something about this. What should they be doing in practical terms?
Well, what we say always is this: we are advocating democracy, so therefore we have to wait for the elections to come to change this government. Right? There's no other way. But however, if this parliament can unite, there are certain ways you can bring certain impeachments in the constitution, certain processes. But it won't work because most of the people are together. Although they are in the front, they are different parties, inside they're actually together. So there's 2/3 in this parliament. And we told the public not to give 2/3 to the parliament, to this government. We said that this would happen even before the elections. And we said not to vote for Sajid's party either, the telephone, because there will be crossovers giving him the 2/3. And that also happened. So what we have said has become true within 1 year and 3 months after the elections. So at least listen to us now. Send decent people to the parliament, but unfortunately you have to wait for 4 years for that. So we have to deal with...
But by 4 years, this bill will be passed.
Not only this bill, Faraz, I know we always say this, but when other governments left, no matter how bad they were, there was something left to rebuild on. But when this government leaves, there will be nothing for a new government to rebuild on.
On that note, let's take a short break, then have a peek at the headlines from News First for the primetime news in English. Don't go away. We'll be back after this short message.
News First, Newsline with Faraz Shauketaly.
And welcome back to Newsline Live. I'm in conversation with Mr. Harshana Nanayakkara, legal man. Now then, apart from the various concerns that we've just been discussing about the proposed Port Commission bill, there are also other contentious matters. One, of course, would be the Commissions of Inquiry Act and what is being played out right now. And the other would be this emergency gazette that has been put out. Are they both equally contentious?
Contentious, I would say draconian even, because I'll first invite the attention of you and your listeners. The Prevention of Terrorism Temporary Provisions Act, number 48 of 1979, they brought a regulation which they're empowered to do. Now, this regulation, when you read it, on the face of it, looks good. That is a gazette to prevent holding extremist views, to de-radicalize those who are holding religious extremist views.
Right.
Now, which I am also in agreement, in principle, because no one. Now, in this country, it will be very popular thinking how the Muslims can be targeted. But remember, even Buddhist extremism can be targeted in this. And also, in the long run, any form of extremism also can be interpreted to be included in this. So, which means anyone who holds an idea which is out of the box could be taken under this act. Now, what is the danger, or what is the undemocratic or the weakness of this is this: you can be detained up to 2 years just by a president's order and Attorney General's involvement. Now, that is because they decide, because this act doesn't define what extremism is, no criteria. So, it's a different matter if the matter is placed before a tribunal or a court. You know, natural justice, you listen to both sides of the story and then make a determination. That would have been fine. But there's no such process. Here the Honorable Attorney General and the Gazette could detain a person up to 2 years. So this violates all forms of natural justice and protection of due process for citizens who are holding any view, because they are the ones who decide who is an extremist and who is not. No court hearing, nothing. So a person can be put away for 2 years, depriving them of their liberty in the pretext of that they are holding extreme views without any court intervention. Similar laws are being used in China to harass the Uyghur community in detention centers. No tribunals, executive decisions. So if you talk about something being undemocratic, dictatorial,
This is it.
this is it. This steals all the first prize.
I'm almost lost for words, but let me put it this way. Is the government of Sri Lanka disinterested in what this sort of action does to its international relationships, to trade potential investment in this country?
This is a very valid point you raised. Investors, unless fly-by-night operators, decent, proper investors won't come to a country where there's no due process, democracy or rule of law. That is normal. Only the damn Chinese will come, right? I'm not to say that all Chinese are indecent, but only wheeler dealers will come. Where's the stability? You think people are going to tolerate this kind of violation? Their obligation to the international community has been violated every turn and corner. You saw the UNHCR report on us condemning this country.
But it appears that Sri Lanka doesn't care about its international standing.
Not that it doesn't care. They do not know what to do. Gotabaya Rajapaksa is a failed president. We have a failed system.
Is that what you say?
I am saying that categorically. I will not mix my words here. He's a good soldier. He fought an excellent war. But he's
but
not
the flip side of that argument would be that the president is but the president, and there is parliament and there are public officials and so on. Very recently, the president has taken umbrage, apparently, on officials who hadn't followed his instructions about the ICT.
Faraz, 6.9 billion people voted for him.
Yeah.
He was given 2/3 majority.
Yeah.
He got the 20th amendment. So the most powerful president, according to law, is
and
this
that
fellow.
is precisely his
If he
frustration.
can't control his
But that is his
subordinates,
frustration.
if that is the situation, then that means he's a weak person, isn't he? Because the law has given him all the authority, majority, everything. Now he says he can't control the price of rice. I mean, he
Well,
can't.
that's again, I bring the flip side. You can't expect the president will claw in. He needs to have the right team. But obviously, somebody somewhere is attempting to short-change change or short-circuit the system.
Who appointed them? Who appointed military officials to the customs, to the RMV? Who appointed these people? Who has the authority to appoint these people under the 20th Amendment? The president. He himself appointed a team of incompetent people who does not follow his instructions. Or people must be feeling the instructions that is coming from president is so immoral, we won't follow it. I don't know which one it is. But he's the one who's appointing. So what is he saying?
So he'll have to get rid of them.
He has the power. The previous Maithripala Sirisena, which we call a weakling, he even removed the prime minister when he wanted to. And this fellow can't even remove a secretary from a ministry.
Or
so
that he won't, because he wants to make sure that every chance is given before they do their job. I'm only putting the flip side.
Of course, I understand. What I'm saying is, in law, he's the most powerful president. He's the one who's appointing these people.
Yeah.
So if they're not performing, why can't they? I think this is rubbish, because you saw what happened during that sugar thing.
So what you're really saying is that President Gotabaya Rajapaksa needs to be very firm in his dealing with these officials.
very firm, very open, and very reasonable.
Yeah.
Remember these words? Because people wanted a military dictatorship, some of them, at least in this country.
Well,
I hope they're looking at Burma.
They got 6.9 million people.
That explains laws like this. That explains laws like this. But what I'm trying to say is this.
But that's because the parliamentarians must have the gumph and the oomph to stand up and do what is right by the people. That's why the parliament is there.
Well, I can guarantee you there are 3 MPs who will do it, but the rest I do not know.
Well, we have the assurances of the SJB that they are also fighting.
If they
I am not flying a flag for anyone.
I hope Sajid will be able to keep the rest of the MPs with him without crossovers.
I hope so. In the interests of democracy and in the interests of equitable play, I hope and I'm certain that Mr. Premadas will be able to do that.
So far, he has managed to lose 8 of them.
Yes, but that is because obviously because of the so-called system that we have, and it's a pretty lot of heavy duty greasing going on.
Sir, 19th Amendment, when it's being debated, the JVP at the time brought in an amendment saying to prohibit crossovers. UMP objected to it. So did Pohotto and them. We are the only ones who said bring in this clause so they can't cross over. It's a betrayal of democracy. So basically what SJB and the UMP are going through are their own creation. So, but the people will suffer in the end.
Yes, but the more reasonable-minded and visionary thinkers need to do whatever they can to change and stem this problem.
The last hope we have is the parliament and the judiciary. The judiciary has to be independent. Parliament has to do their job. If the parliament is doing their job and the judiciary is doing their job, at least the amount of damage that is going to be caused will be reduced. Remember, most of these issues are now before the Supreme Court. So I still have faith.
Let's keep the faith. Harshana Nanayakkara, thank you very much for being on Newsline Live. And that's the way it was on Newsline Live this evening. Thank you for watching and take care. And as always, God bless you.
Newsfirst, Newsline with Faraz Shauketaly.